Purdy needs to change that number. Is Purdy changing that number? Let's bring in David Lombardi, 49ers insider for The Athletic. Brock Purdy strikes me as a guy who doesn't care what jersey he wears. Just
he was wearing 13 because of Dan Marino,
right.
Correct?
Yeah, Dan Marino's his favorite player.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he wore 13 during the season. He wore 14.
In preseason he wore 14.
Preseason wore 14 when he changed it 13. Yeah, no 14. No 14. 14 is a terrible number.
David got married recently.
Did he really?
Congratulations, David.
Got hitched?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Congratulations.
Are you still going to be able to unload the spreadsheets now that you're a married man?
The reason I do the spreadsheets is because I'm married. My wife now came up with them. She's like really good at spreadsheets. I'm not kidding.
This is breaking news right now. So your wife is the architect behind the spreadsheet movement. I'm impressed.
Yeah, she was. I wanted to make something a couple years ago. I forgot what I was. I think it was the roster. We made the Build Your 49ers roster in the offseason, and fans can go and make their team and sign free agents and do whatever. And I was working on it a few years ago, right around the time I met her, and she's like, "What are you working on?" She comes over to the screen. She's like, "Hey, hold on, that looks like crap." And 5 seconds later, she spins the computer background on me, and it's all color coded, and it looks nice and everything. So that's all her. She does. I mean, I've learned how to do it now, but I got a lot better at the spreadsheets through that.
You're off to a roaring start of your marriage because behind every great man is a much better woman, and you need to acknowledge it at every single turn. So smart man, David. Now, on that spreadsheet, if I were to ask you, put down a spreadsheet of biggest storylines heading in to today's camp, what do you think's number one?
Well, the most popular storyline is going to be Trey Lance's mechanics. I'm really excited. I think he looks a lot better based on the videos that I've seen. And then obviously, we talked to Jeff Christensen. You talked to, I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would tell you that he looks better because he's been working out with Patrick Mahomes this offseason. The release is quicker. The base looks a lot healthier, a lot more solid because he's had a chance to work on this stuff in the lab. And the big question is, can he carry that improvement over from the lab to live action? And it's not going to be live action until September, but it's going to incrementally build up, right? So we're going to see Trey in 11-on-11 OTA stuff in shorts today. So that's going to be the first test. Can he take that improvement of his mechanics to 11-on-11 action? And then the next step past that is going to be, can he take it to padded action in training camp, and then preseason where rushers are actually trying to get you, right? And then finally regular season where it's full speed. So many times you see in any sport somebody work on their technique, but then once live action starts, there is a reversion to the old bad habits. And the 49ers believe that Trey was so raw coming out of college, had so few passing attempts, they actually have believed that this is going to be not the norm. This is going to be something where they can see him mechanically improve over time and, really embed those improvements into his style of play come Sunday. So that's what we're about to find out this season. And that journey really takes another big step today because we're going to get to watch him try to carry those mechanical improvements into 11-on-11 action.
David Lombardi, 49ers insider for The Athletic, does an excellent job covering the Niners. Did a great job when he was back at Stanford back in the day. Parlayed that to the 49ers. Yeah, no doubt about it. You learn something reading David Lombardi's work at The Athletic. All right, before I get to Sam Darnold, what's the latest on Brock Purdy? What's the latest on him? What have you heard about him? Is he throwing? What's the latest on Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
David?
He's throwing, but not a football. He's going through the throwing motion, but with a towel in his hand. And supposedly he's moving his arm violently, like he's going 100% with his arm, but the football just isn't there yet. That's expected in about 10 days or so. Early June is when right after the surgery, which was about 2.5 months ago, they said 3 months is when the throwing should resume. And based on everything that I'm hearing, Brock Purdy is on schedule to resume throwing then. And then as soon as he does start throwing, they're going to be able to make a much firmer prognosis about when he can return. So the initial general prognosis was 3 months of no throwing and then 3 months of throwing, and then the rehab is done. But it could be quicker than that. It could be 3 months of no throwing, 2 months of throwing, and then he's worked back in. It could also be longer than that, but we've never really expected to have an update until early June. But I look at the calendar now, and it's almost early June, and based on everything I hear, that update should be coming here in a couple weeks.
Let's just play this hypothetical game, and we don't usually do that on the morning roast here at 95.7 a game, but with Brock Purdy, I think it's important. If Brock Purdy does, say if he's not ready until week five, and it sounds like the team believes he's the starter. It's his team. But what if it is week 5 and Trey is rolling? Or hell, it could be Sam Darnold. They're 4-1. Is it guaranteed that Brock Purdy's going to step right in and take back over the starting job? Or will Kyle Shanahan step back and say, you know what? I just want to roll with the hot hand?
Well, I don't think anybody's been named a starter. They've said that Brock is the leader in the clubhouse, and that's it. They haven't said, oh, this is his job. I think the 49ers love the fact that they have competition, and that they believe all three of these guys within the context of their system, playing for Kyle Shanahan, playing with the stable of weapons that the 49ers have. They think that they have a potentially good quarterback in all three of these guys, so they can let this play out organically. So, I mean, you talk about something developing naturally. Well, if Brock is unable to play for the first few weeks of the season and Trey Lance starts and is playing at the level of efficient football that we saw Brock Purdy deliver last year, of course you're going to keep on going with Trey Lance. Same thing with Sam Darnold. Of course you're going to keep on going with Sam Darnold if he's the one that somehow wins this job and you're 4-0 and he's leading the league in passer rating. I mean, you'd be out of your mind to not stick with him, right? So, but these are all decisions that the 49ers can't make right now because we don't know what the situation is going to be. But their idea of the quarterback room is that they have 3 darts, and they could throw these darts up against the wall, and you have to get hit as close to the bullseye as possible, right? That means that you found yourself a good quarterback that can work well with what looks to be a really strong roster. If you only have 1 dart, you can miss really badly, and your whole season could go down the drain. But they figure that with 3 darts, at least one of these is going to hit close enough to the bullseye to where this team can be competitive. And I think that's the plan. They're viewing this quarterback room as a game of numbers, right? They want one of these guys, at least one of these guys, to pan out for them this year.
Yeah. Last year, I know you're there every day. I went to as many as I could, the training camps and things like that. And it's like, there were days Trey looked good, and then there were other days he didn't look so good. And there were days that okay, Sudfeld, whatever, and Purdy looks decent in some drills, and I'm not seeing a whole lot in 11-on-11s because he's only getting like 1 rep to their 3 or 4 reps. And so I guess my question is, can we really learn anything? Like, as fans that are going to go to any of these practices coming up in a couple of months, as you as a reporter, eventually when you're allowed to be on the field, do the players, can we truly learn anything until live bullets start happening in these exhibition games from these quarterbacks?
I think that we got on Trey Lance over the first few years. Like you said, we saw days when he did spectacular stuff, and then we saw days when he looked horrendous. And for me, Trey Lance has always been, through these first 2 years, a low-floor, high-ceiling quarterback. And the challenge for the 49ers is to raise the floor that you're not getting these terrible days and have him reside near that ceiling more often. Because, in my opinion, his ceiling is higher than Brock Purdy's. There's a reason why he was drafted at number 3
I'm with you.
Overall, and Purdy was way down at number 262. And it's because, you could see it. You could see the bigger arm. You could see, one thing about Purdy that I think everybody underestimated coming out of college was his burst. I mean, his first 10 yards, he can get out of the pocket really quick. But as far as straight line speed over a longer distance, I think Trey Lance probably has the ability to rack up more scrambling goes than Brock Purdy. So you have, that could open up a whole other dimension of the offense. But if Purdy's floor is so much higher, and we saw that last year right now because Trey Lance remains undeveloped,
erratic,
raw prospect. Yeah, and obviously the mechanics haven't caught up yet, so the accuracy has been an issue, at least more so than somebody like Brock Purdy. If that's where you're at with Trey Lance, well, then you've got to bring that floor up. And I've learned that through these practices. I thought that the last 2 years we've seen that the roller coaster ride that we've gone on day in and day out has actually carried over to his limited sample size on the field. There has been erraticism on the field. Now, the sample is still tiny on game day for Trey Lance. So one thing the 49ers need to get this year is they need to get a bigger game day sample from him before, he got hurt too soon in both of those seasons. And in the first year, it was in week 3 of the preseason, he broke the finger, and that scuttled a lot of learning opportunities for the 49ers. So all you can do at this point is gather information on these guys and, again, let it play out organically because these seasons present so many twists and turns that nobody can expect right now.
Yeah, 2 quick little points here that I would love your elaboration on or your clarification on. Like, I'm enamored by seeing a lot of people who weren't in any of these practices or camps talk about what Purdy was, what Trey wasn't. Like, I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of changing of the narratives, if you will. Like, Purdy was solid, but to say that he blew people away, I found that to be a little absurd because I wasn't blown away, and I didn't think other people were. He was fine. That, and then just the overall, the amount of clicks and buzz that the quarterback position gets, like as someone who writes for a living and puts out these articles and is talking, like, it feels like it's 10-1 on this team, and there are superstars galore on this team, and yet all we're focused on are these 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, on your first point, Brock Purdy was the 3rd quarterback during training camp, and remember, he was a rookie last year too. He made us forget really quickly that he was a rookie with how polished he looked down the stretch. But I think that there was a learning curve for Brock Purdy that mainly happened behind the scenes between training camp and when he took over against Miami. And I don't think that the Brock Purdy that we saw against Miami moving forward was the same Brock Purdy as training camp.
Agreed.
I think that there was a whole heck of a lot of improvement. I'm sure he absorbed a ton from Brian Griese, from Jimmy Garoppolo, from Trey Lance, because I know that Trey Lance was helping out after he got hurt. And I think that was huge for the 49ers season, that he had time to work behind the scenes, because he looked a whole lot better to me once he took over than he did during training camp. There was just his comfort with the NFL playbook was substantially better at that point. So I think that the bridge that Jimmy Garoppolo built in between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy last year was really important for the 49ers because, you toss the QB into the wrong situation. If he's not ready, he's a little overwhelmed with the playbook or this and that, his career can really go off on the wrong foot, and he's not in the same place that he is now. As far as the bigger picture of the QB situation, you're absolutely right. It seems that that's the only thing that people care about. And this is a fascinating team because of the star power everywhere. I mean, this offseason, they already had the number 1 defense, right, in the NFL last year by essentially every metric. And they go out and they pick up Javon Hargrave.
Baller.
Was the best defensive free agent on the market, and hardly anybody's talking about that. So theoretically, the number 1 defense should be even more dominant this year if they can, maintain the same level of health as they did last season. And to me, that's like, whoa, everybody's talking about these quarterbacks, but you have that on the defensive side of the ball. You're about to pay Nick Bosa. On offense, you have Christian McCaffrey, who's one of the most electric players in the league. He really transformed everything. And, every single one of these quarterbacks is going to have the benefit, like the chance to play with Christian McCaffrey, to prove themselves with Christian McCaffrey, right? At least during training camp, he's going to be out on the field, and he changes everything.
Yep.
And, it's phenomenal to me that you have this much talent, yet every single day it seems the conversation just circles back to the same spot because, there's a lot of teams in the NFL that would want to trade rosters with the 49ers right now.
No doubt about that. David Lombardi, before we let you go, what's the storyline that we're sleeping on going into OTAs? The storyline, we all talk about the quarterbacks. Obviously, you got Bosa, you got Ayuk and the extensions, Debo, McCaffrey, the star list. But what's the storyline we're sleeping on here that you think is really big for the 49ers?
Well, I'm talking about that defense, the edge rusher spot opposite of Nick Bosa. If Drake Jackson steps up this year, and they say that he's added some muscle, they say that he's been working so that his endurance and his strength against the run is such that he doesn't have to come off the field down the stretch run of this season. If he can take over that starting spot and be an effective pressure generator opposite of Nick Bosa, this could be the best 49ers defense they've ever had. I mean, you look at it. Bosa's the best defensive player in the league.
Agreed.
Javon Hargrave's one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in the league. We know that Eric Armstead is really good if he could be healthy. Last year, obviously, that was an issue. We know the linebackers are the best in the league. We know they've got a lot of good players in the secondary. If you can figure out that second edge rushing spot, oh my God! I mean, we won't be talking about the quarterbacks this season because this defense could be holding offenses to such a low output. So, to me, that's kind of the hinge point here. Is this going to be a really good defense, or is this going to be a transcendent defense? It's that second edge rushing spot, and there's a lot of pressure on Drake Jackson to make that happen. Second-round pick from 2021.
Well, I lied. I have one more for you now. I lied, David. I want to keep you on the air. I know my boss is going to get mad here. But game you're looking forward to on the road schedule. We're going over the schedule yesterday because we're finally kind of moving past the Warriors a little bit as they have a big offseason, but their season just ended. So we were kind of recapping the schedule yesterday at Pittsburgh, at L.A., at Jacksonville, at Cleveland, Minnesota. What's the road trip game you're looking forward to?
There's a few kind of under the radar cities that I haven't been to Cleveland. I'm looking forward to seeing Cleveland, but I have been to Pittsburgh, but I haven't seen a game there. That's going to be neat. So I don't know. So some of those cities in that area of the country, especially since they think the Niners are going there before the weather is going to be bitter. I think Pittsburgh's obviously, or it might still even be warm in Pittsburgh in early September. Cleveland, I think, is mid-October.
Yep.
I like when there are games in cities that the 49ers don't usually visit because it's something different. You go to the divisional opponents every single year.
Right.
You know those stadiums better than Levi's. Those stadiums have a home field advantage that's like Levi's in some cases for the 49ers if you go down to SoFi. So nothing against SoFi. It's an awesome stadium, but I can't wait to see Cleveland, and I can't wait to see
Minnesota.
Wait to see Pittsburgh. Minnesota, too.
Bank Stadium. Yeah, that's a good stadium up there with the roof. No doubt about that. David Lombardi will be at OTAs. We'll be reading your stuff. We'll be looking for recaps as everybody goes crazy over the quarterbacks.
Yep.
I want to see you tweet something else about edge rushers, David.
That's and congratulations on the marriage.
Oh, yeah, congratulations,
from everybody here to you,
doubt.
man. Congratulations to you and your wife.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, thanks so much. And she'll probably be out at a game or two this offseason.
Nice.
So,
Sounds good.
Come up and say hi.
Hell yeah.
Sounds good. All
Let's
right,
go.
David. Good stuff, man. Good
Very
stuff.
cool.
David Lombardi from The Athletic.